Good evening, people. Welcome to the Keeping It Real Conversation Show with your host, Camila, aka Sunshine. It is Tuesday, January 30th, 2024. We are in the land of the living. It could have been another way, but God saw fit for us to be here tonight. Um, let somebody know that we are live on the Facebook page. We are live on the YouTube channel, which is the name of the show. Please like, share, and subscribe. We are live on Twitch as well as X, formerly known as Twitter. As I always say, we have some of the dopest people on this side of heaven that come through and have a conversation with me. I believe in 6 degrees of separation. You are literally one person away, one advice away, one help away from where you need to be in your destiny, proven over and over again since I started this show in 2020. This evening is dear and dear to my heart. Somebody I grew up with, literally. Somebody who I briefly went to high school with as well. And then we're all, of course, serving God together in our respective flocks. So let me get into his bio real quick, and then we're going to get into this wonderful conversation. I will state that I said, look what the Lord has done. That'll preach by itself. But we will get into that in a little bit. So, I'm going to skip around. Michael Brry Sr. is clear concerning his assignment to bring those who encounter his ministry into the proper care and attendance necessary to restore them to wholeness and rightful place in God. It is clearly seen that his mandate is to prophetically shape nations and the body of Christ to further development and maturity to one's authentic call and purpose. Michael D. Brry Sr. now continues to build his spiritual legacy with his appointment as the proud permanent pastor of Jordan Missionary Baptist Church, which is in Detroit, in December of 2022. The evidence of his leadership efforts has already begun to strengthen the multi-generational bond among members, expand outreach, cultivate families, and continue the church's solid legacy of cultural significance and community involvement. Again, he is a third-generation minister who values the gift of education. I'm going to skip around. Michael D. Brry Sr. comes from a strong Levitical pedigree of preachers, intercessors, singers, and musicians for sure. All gifts him himself possess. These gifts can be seen through him as he allows himself to be used as an instrument for God's glory. He is an example of humility, servanthood, and sacrifice to all who encounter him. He is the husband to Lady Bonita. His greatest joy and honor is serving her, of course, and the life of his 9 children. And yes, I did say 9. His 9 children and 2 granddaughters. You guys, I want you to welcome my friend, Pastor Michael Brry Sr. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful this evening, Camila. How about yourself?
I cannot complain. So I usually let the people know how I know my guests. 85% of my guests that have been on here since 2020, I've never met in person.
Wow.
And it's over 300 and something people. But the great thing is the ones that I do know, of course, personally, it's more fulfilling to me because I've watched their journey. I'm a part of their journey. So our journey together began, I can't date the year, but we're growing up in Wayside Missionary Baptist Church. The late Pastor D.N. Ford And our interacting was through the choir.
Mhm.
And your mom at the time was the director. And when I tell you that time has been and forever will be a mark on my life. The things I've learned under her tutelage, and us as young adults growing up under that type of ministry, definitely holds high regards to this day.
True.
Uh, with your family, as we said, the musician, the leadership, the um, ministry itself. Uh, I remember your uncle, the one and only David Brry, playing the organ every week. When to this day people are like, "Oh my God, he's the best, organist." And I'm like, we used to sit there and listen to him. I half the time probably wasn't even singing because I was so mesmerized at his playing, and he didn't talk. It was so weird to me. I was like, he would sit there, and he would nod his head or shake his head, but he would not talk. And I, I thought that was the craziest thing. But he wouldn't say anything. Um, with you, I watched you, and I have so many questions. I have so many questions. With the family you come through or come from, I always wondered, were you pressured into ministry? Did you know for sure that you were going to become a pastor or even in ministry at all?
It's funny that you started out with that question.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I laughed the way that I did about it is because I'm actually in the process now of writing my third book. And today I was working on a chapter that really um, caused me to really go back to my beginnings. You know how this journey started for me. And so, really, to be honest, I was not pressured. But what I will say is that the odds, if you will, were greatly stacked in the favor of me doing what I'm doing today. And what I mean by that is part of my mother's testimony is she was a teenage mother. My mother actually graduated high school carrying me across the stage
Wow.
for her graduation. And during the whole time my mom was carrying me, um, she listened to what then was some of our nation's greatest preachers. I mean, she would put on their records. I know some people are going to be looking and like, what in the world is a record? Uh,
Right.
but she would put on those records and she listened to those preachers daily. Um, while she was carrying me, she saturated my life even while I was in her womb in the Word of God, around great preaching, great preachers. My grandfather was a preacher. My uncles were preachers. And so she surrounded me. Just as you see mothers today, mothers to be reading to their child. Well, my mom was not reading Essence or uh, Jet magazine. She was reading the Bible to the seed that was in her womb, playing gospel music. And then from there, by the time I was born, during my formative years, as early as elementary school, my grandfather, Dr. Samuel Berry Sr., uh, really began to, he saw something. My grandparents saw something in me that at the time I didn't, had no idea. Uh, but they began to groom me for ministry. My grandfather pastored a church out in Belleville, Michigan, would go up there 4 times a week, which was 50 miles, by the way, from his house. and he would go up there. And a lot of those days, he would pick me up, and I would accompany him. My grandfather uh, would allow me to go to the hospital to visit the sick and shut in. He would have me do the prayer and even lay hands on the sick. Um, and so certain things were just instilled in me. Every week or every time I went to my grandparents' church out there in Belleville, uh, I had no say so in the matter. I had to do the Sunday school review, and so I was groomed for it. Anybody that knows me knows that my first hero was my grandfather. I wanted to be like my granddaddy. And I can recall when I would spend a night at their house, and my grandfather would be sitting down at the dining room table on a Saturday night working on this sermon. And I would be sitting with my little Bible and the Sunday school book, and would be getting, my mind together, and would be studying the Sunday school lesson. And so um, ultimately, it was still my yes that I had to give to God, which winded up coming at a young age. It was still my yes, but I was not forced into it, but I was groomed into it. No different than how Prince Charles, well, now he's King Charles, was born into what he was born into, and all of those years of preparation by his mother and his father, his family, led to the moment he's in now.
Absolutely. Um, with you being in tenor and me in alto, it was always the look over or the look behind. And
Yeah.
I just knew it was something different about you. I don't
Mhm.
recall doing a lot of conversations with you because of course I assumed that everybody was older than me, not realizing you're only 2 years older than me. But it
Only
just
2
didn't
years.
seem that right. It didn't seem that way back then. I remember I want to say your first solo in the choir.
Oh
You
no!
really did, yes, and you really didn't want to.
Right.
And that song stuck out to me because it was the first time I heard a young adult sing with an adult, like, and carry
Yeah.
his own,
Yeah.
and like got happy at the end. I have the tape.
And she, by the way, was one of the premier singers in our church.
Absolutely.
So that was a tremendous weight, to
Shout out
carry.
to Miss Ella Moore.
Truly.
There's none
Truly.
like her.
None
Trust
like
me,
it.
none to this
None
day.
like it. Yeah. Yeah.
And to see you hold your own, and that was actually at a concert
Truly.
that we
Yeah.
did.
Hmm.
And he got happy at the end, y'all. And it just took the church into a whole nother atmosphere because we're not expecting this.
Hmm.
You're a young guy. I want to say you probably was in high school by this time, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in my, I probably was in the 8th grade on my way to high school
Okay.
when I sang that song. Yeah.
So, and the craziest thing is I reached out to him like, what was the name of that song? You told me, and then maybe months later, the person who actually sung the song on the record passed away, and I was like,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. Um,
Hmm.
and so many things is just so prevalent into that church, growing up in the church, growing up in ministry as far as the choir, not realizing until years later that that was ministry. um
Truly.
it was just something that we had no choice in that either. um
Hmm.
you was gonna sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were gonna do
It's
something.
right. It's, today's parenting style is so different than how we came up. Church was not an option for us. Serving in the church was not an option for us. Uh, I mean, I did everything in the church from, I remember sometime my mother would make me, when she was the church secretary for a minute, an administrator, and Deacon Jackson. You remember Deacon Jackson? Well, Deacon Jackson used to clean the church for a while. And I can remember sometime my mother would make me, while I was down at the church with her, she would make me go upstairs and help Deacon Jackson clean the church. You know, I had to clean toilets, and you know, in the back of my mind as a kid, I'm like, this ain't my house. You know, I don't live here. You know, but it was all part of my upbringing. It was all part of our making and our development. It showed us a servitude side of ministry. You know, I've done everything in the church, at Wayside from when I was learning how to play. And I remember when the church was going through transition with musicians before uh, my Uncle David came, and it was a funeral. And Reverend Ford told me to get on the organ. you know, I did everything from that to, playing the drums, directing sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Directing for me, a lot of people don't know it. It didn't begin at Wayside. It actually began during our family concerts. The Brry family used to do these concerts with my grandmother every year at different churches. And my grandmother gave me the opportunity to direct in one of the concerts. And I'll never forget one time I got upset because my mother was standing behind me and I was trying to get the family choir to go in one direction and they didn't go. And I turned around and it was because they was following my mom
Mm-hmm.
and not me. And I remember being upset about that. And I had to deal with the harsh reality of my mother telling me, uh, uh, "You're not ready to master the choir yet." And I said, "What do you mean? I know how to take them through the different transitions of a song." And she said, "Until you can teach a song, and you can teach a song with no music, you ain't ready." And so, I had to endure things behind the scenes that you guys didn't see. I don't know if you remember this or not, but by the time my Uncle David was playing there at Wayside and my mother was the minister of music, it was this Thomas Whitfield song that I wanted to teach to the mass choir.
Mm.
And my mother had been telling me, okay, I'm going to let you teach it, but you better listen to it. And I'll never forget, I got up to teach and I did not know. I had the soprano part, I had the tenor part, but I used to always struggle with learning those alto parts.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when it got to them altos, I fumbled and I stumbled to the point where my mother did, my uncle David from the organ called me over to the organ and said, "You get back up there in the choir stand. You get back up there in the choir stand until you know what you're doing." You know, I was so embarrassed, but it was part of my development. It was part of my
Yes.
development. So, there were those that looked and said, "Man, that's harsh." But no, it was part of perfecting the craft and the gifts and talents that God had instilled in me.
Absolutely. One of these days I will get David on here. I have been asking for a while, and even your
'Cause
mom.
he talks,
Um,
man.
yes, to come on to just the history and the
Hmm.
legacy of your family and how it has preserved you guys, um, and the gifts that, man,
Yeah,
no one plays like David. Absolutely
nobody.
no one. Nobody.
Absolutely.
He has played for many
Hmm.
um, awesome people. Um, Going back to being young, and again, I assumed because your mom was in leadership, your dad was preaching, I believe, at the time. Um,
Hmm.
you're the oldest. That okay? He's interested in leading. Next is he gonna be the junior preacher. Like they're grooming him to start preaching.
Hmm.
It even went to okay, your cousin Sam was coming to the church and practice. I was hearing, oh, he about to start preaching. I'm like, okay, so is this a thing?
Yeah.
Everybody got to a certain age, not everybody want to start preaching. I was like, oh, okay, so we just gonna sit here and watch.
Mhm.
And then we all, I would see you in the hallways at Osborne. Um, you never, you would speak, but again, I don't recall us ever
Mhm.
having like serious conversation. We knew of each other. We went to the same church, but it wasn't never just a regular conversation like, hey, what's up, Mike? Like, hey, and just keep it moving.
Yeah.
But I saw the transition within you right there at
Mhm.
Wayside of you becoming your own. Um, not just I'm a Brry, but I'm me.
Mhm.
So one of the
Yeah.
things I talked to your assistant was we wanted to show the human side of the preacher man.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
some people believe like y'all don't laugh, y'all don't have fun, y'all don't
Mhm.
like really that's what
Yeah.
y'all think?
Mhm.
Oh, y'all really don't know him then, do you?
Right.
So let's get into the human side of Mike. Like,
Okay.
um, I'm just saying,
Mhm.
again of knowing the call. Oh, when did you know you were called? Like, okay, let's go there. What age?
Um, e- Even during my elementary years of school, I knew I was different. I knew I was different. My sisters tease me about it to this day. I was the kid that would go to school dressed like it was career day just about every day. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I didn't want to carry a backpack. I wanted to carry a briefcase. You know, I wanted to wear a suit. And part of one of the reasons you probably thought I was much older than you was because I was one of the few young men at the church that didn't just come with, slack shirt or a slack shirt and a tie. For the most part, I was always in a suit. You know, that that's what I desired. So I always knew it was something different. Again, my grandfather was my hero. I came up around great preachers and always admired them. But I knew for sure, I'll never forget, uh, uh, Reverend Ford was in the hospital. And this was during the month of November. He was in the hospital. Uh, and um, this particular Sunday, my father was scheduled to preach. And the choir sang, and the power of God fell. I mean, fell and just swept through the church. Uh, uh, and I had just got done directing a song for the mass choir, and the power of God fell. And I remember going back in the choir stand. And this particular Sunday, I was sitting in the tenor section behind the sopranos.
Okay.
And when I got up there and sat down, everybody in the church was praising God. A lot of people in the church were praising God. Church was just in an uproar. And I could not move. I wanted to praise God. I could not praise God. I literally, it was almost as if though I was paralyzed. And I really did hear the voice of the Holy Spirit telling me that God wanted me to preach his word. And I could not move until I said yes. And I went down. I remember going down, leaving out the choir stand and walking in the pulpit. And I leaned over to tell my father what I had just experienced. And it was almost as if though everybody in the church knew what had happened, because the spiritual climate of the church shifted even the more. And what was crazy was Reverend Ford winded up calling the church. Somebody answered the phone and was telling him what was going on. And he said, tell Michael. Now, nobody knew what I had told my father. Reverend Ford told, I believe it was Reverend Hill, to tell me to call him at his hospital room after the service. After the service was over with, I get the message. I go in the office, in Reverend's office, and I called him. And Reverend, who was not in the service, by the way, already knew what was going on with me. And I shared with him, and he said, we'll talk more when he got out the hospital and everything. And so I wound up speaking with him. He had prayer with me. And in that moment of our conversation, I'll never forget, it was that following Tuesday before choir rehearsal. I had to meet with Reverend in his office, and he said to me, he said, okay, first Sunday in December at 3:30, you're preaching your trial sermon. And I said, yes, sir. And walked out, went in rehearsal, and that was that. And true enough, the following month, on the first Sunday in December, I was preaching my first trial sermon, or what is called your trial sermon.
Wow.
That was it.
So we always hear the transit. Well, we don't really hear the transition stories. We see one moment you here, next minute you up here, but they never talk about the in between of while you're trying to establish yourself in God. Mm-hmm. What did that look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Much trial and error, because I began preaching when I was 13 years old. I was, my birthday is New Year's Day. So I was 1 month away from turning 14. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I started preaching young, and I had to endure the pressures of living up to the standards and expectations, not only of God's word, but of people. And so I remember battling, sometimes as a young man, with the fact that older people, older people didn't have a problem with reminding me that I was a preacher. My peers had no problem with reminding me, and so there would be things I wanted to do, I couldn't do, because not that my parents wouldn't have allowed me to, because they believed in balance. I didn't come up in a home where we couldn't dance and all of that other stuff. I mean, my father was a preacher and he danced, listened to secular music and, those things. So, I grew up in a home of balance, but sometimes people's expectations of me was that because I was a preacher, I could no longer do some of the things that an average 13, 14-year-old boy would do. And so sometimes that would be a struggle for me. I'll never forget, I ain't gonna say her name, but first girl I really was crushing on that wayside from the time I got there, growing up. And I never forget when we finally did start, calling ourselves liking each other, she broke up with me. And she broke up with me, watch this, Camila, because in high school, her perception of me was that I wouldn't be able to go to the homecomings and wouldn't be able to go to prom and everything because I was a preacher.
Hmm.
So in that, there was a part of me that uh, went through periods of inward rebellion where I would do things uh, that I knew I shouldn't have done, but it was that part of me learning how to come into this new construct, if you will, for my life, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm still a young man that is evolving. I'm
Right.
still developing, I'm still coming into who I am. And and I had to learn how to live with the constraints that come with the call. And it wasn't always easy, And so in that, my life honestly was always at a faster pace than the next guy my age because of the call and because of the preaching and because of the giftings and my anointings that I possess. So uh it my convictions were different is where I'm going.
Okay.
So because I always had this desire to live right, don't mean I always did right
Yeah,
with it.
right, right.
That's evident, but my desire to live right and to live a certain way before God and his people were always at the forefront of my life from the moment I started preaching. And so in that, man, I'm married. Man, my first marriage, I was 19 years old. What in the world?
19.
I was 19 years old.
What?
Yes. I'm finna tell you something else that's gonna blow your mind. I started pastoring my first church at 21.
You ain't even lived yet. What is you talking about?
Exactly. I hadn't even lived yet. Watch this. I was married before I even knew what it was to be a man and be a man on my own. My first child was out of wedlock, you
Mhm.
know, uh, and everything. And so again, nobody pressured me into these things. These were my choices.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were made through a heart that wanted to please God, that wanted to live a certain way, that wanted to be uh, a preacher of integrity and character.
Hmm.
So my heart, my intentions were in the right place,
Yeah.
but but a lot of it was just too much too quick. Because even though my parents, it was a thing in their day to marry fresh
Yeah.
out of high
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and their marriages lasted for years. I mean, my first marriage lasted 16 years.
Yeah.
But who I was when I got married versus who I was at the time of our separation and divorce was different. I was a different person. And my life had spiraled in so many directions. I had to live out so much of who I am publicly because my life was fast tracked that way. Again, not by force, but by choice. And it ultimately, when I look back on it, was because I really didn't know and nobody really taught me how to balance out my convictions,
Okay.
and my desire for wanting to, please God. Really, to just be honest, I wasn't the guy that wanted to waste a lot of time repenting. I didn't want to go to hell. I want to live right.
Hmm.
So for me, it was marriage. It was, you know, nowadays people don't fear those things.
Yeah.
So, they drag out the process and they call it now taking time to, come into who you are. And so I don't live life with regrets. However, if I could do some things over,
Over.
uh,
Hmm.
I most certainly would have done them differently. And that has nothing to do with people. That has everything to do with Michael Berry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so again, those the moments of transparency and honesty is what's needed for me in the
Mhm.
church of I haven't always been this way.
Yeah.
Um, I remember even being at Wayside, we at church all the time, and uh, I think I lost my virginity at 15, and it wasn't like I really wanted to. It was a question, and the dude
Yeah.
was like, "I can show you better than I can tell you." Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
show me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how you fall for that dumb stuff? Like what? And
Been there.
then it was even at 15, I remember having the heart and wanting to not only please God, like you said, I purposely went on a journey of reading the whole Bible for myself, right?
Mhm.
There's a 15. And not, oh, I wouldn't even say days after I read the last page of Revelation, here come the devil like,
Yeah.
oh, you're you're becoming a woman now. Don't you have
Mhm.
questions? Like,
Mm. Yeah.
sure. And at the time, you're thinking everybody is doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you would hear
Mhm.
stories, and our parents talk too much. They can't keep water. Oh God, they can't keep water. So if any of us in the church, especially, was
Mhm.
doing anything, everybody and their mama knew.
Oh yeah, because if we got a
So
whooping for it, they told their friends why we got a whooping. You
yes,
know.
why you on punishment? Why you can't go
Right.
out? Why you can't? I remember I couldn't go
Yeah.
to your house for a long time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
And
you can't.
punishments for us was, for me was, sometimes I couldn't go out to eat with the musicians and the fellas after service. I couldn't after youth chorale rehearsal. I had to go home. I couldn't go to Pizza Hut and have my pizza and my milk as I used to like to have. you know.
He said
Uh,
milk.
oh yeah, yeah. I used to.
What?
Oh yeah, I used to love milk. Yeah, I would drink milk with everything.
What?
Yeah, everybody else would be sitting at Pizza Hut, the whole youth choir and musicians and everything. We all be sitting at Pizza Hut and they'll be ordering Pepsi and Mountain Dew and with the pizza or whatever. And I'll be sitting there with I'll be sitting there with my slices of pizza and will be drinking me a tall glass of white milk with ice.
Wow. I wouldn't see, I wasn't allowed to be because I had already gotten in trouble. So it was
Hmm.
like, yeah, there's not enough chaperones and no anything can happen. You probably be the one come up pregnant, blah blah blah. So no, I couldn't hang out.
Yeah, yeah.
My mom was not playing that at all.
Yeah, yeah. And fortunately enough, um, from what I can recall, um, the youth chorale that we were a part of and that we were in, thank God, there were none that came up pregnant, um, and things of that nature. And it again goes back to the upbringing. Kids nowadays, if they came up under the constraint that we came up under, they
They'd
they
be
be
in
calling
trouble.
the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I want to say this because I thought about this, when you were talking about, uh, the conversation that led to you, losing your virginity. Watch this. I had that same pressure. Okay. I had that same pressure. I was a little younger than you. And that's all I'm going to say on that note. But I
What?
had the same pressure. But where I want to go with that is this. This is why, as a parent, I'm very protective um, of who I have always allowed my children to be around in the church, even as it relates to other children. Because watch this, a lot of the behaviors that I learned from church people. You
Wow.
know, yeah, I learned from people in the church. That uh, had me thinking it was okay to keep secrets from the parents. Had me, thinking, you know, that would encourage me, you know, going in that back room and, and kiss that girl before y'all leave rehearsal, and all of that stuff. you know, I'll never forget, the first drink I ever took, was encouraged for me to take by church folk at a wedding reception.
Okay.
I wasn't even grown, you
Mhm.
know. So I said that to say, we got to be careful, because the demons that our children face today are, you know, more intense than the ones we face, you know. And we have to remember the things of our youth so that we could safeguard,
Yes,
this next generation that's coming up now.
absolutely. And it's more
Yeah.
so, I have talked about this because it's a personal thing.
Mhm.
Your first touches were people who are finding themselves as well, where it
Mhm.
was the guard was down, you're a neighbor, you a whatever. You
Yeah.
wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Mhm.
I could trust you, and you're the main ones who were doing it. And
Yeah.
it becomes so normal that um it's not normal for it to happen or for it
Mhm.
not to happen because
Right.
we have, we watching stuff at the Cosby, I think was, the episodes of they playing house,
Yeah.
and all these different things like, oh, I want to. Oh, it almost got to the point, and I ain't trying to be funny, but whoever wasn't hooked up, I'm like, okay, I got a chance with this person because,
Mhm.
and they like, but
Yeah.
your mom is mean. So does that mean you don't like me because my mama mean? No, you can't do nothing. But forget
Ah,
you
gee.
did. So for me, everybody was doing having fun as I thought, but
Mhm.
I couldn't because my mom feared. She was a
Miss
part of
Wiggling
community
wasn't playing
care. No, my mom was not. Daddy, he was all right, but my mama didn't play that because my mom was an awesome singer as well. She was
it.
around
Mhm.
the community choir. She knew what was going
Yeah.
on in the choirs, and she was like,
Mhm.
"Not my daughter." Well,
Yep.
as we all say, we if there's a way, we gonna find it. It
Yeah.
might not be through the church, but we gonna find it. So it's
Right.
always those moments where
Mhm.
we have to really be honest and really see yourselves in your children. You can't ignore that's you.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
part right there. I
Yeah.
already know what you're thinking. I already know what you're planning. I hear it already. Guess what? I already did
Mhm.
it. So
Right.
is that those moments for me to know you on the other side of it.
Mhm.
I never there was moments and times in our lives separately that I didn't know. I would hear things, but I didn't know. I didn't know where none
Mhm.
of y'all were. Like once we got
Mhm.
to a certain age and you graduated from Osborne, I didn't see you anymore. I
Mhm.
knew you were preaching, but I didn't know anything about your life. And it was like,
Well,
okay,
yeah. It's you know. I am very thankful for my journey. Um, I, I, what's up, Corey? I always knew that I was different. You know, um, there were certain things that was in my DNA spiritually that I began to battle with, um, and I was at Wayside from the time I want to say 8 or 9. Yeah, probably around 8 or 9 until um, 17. At the
okay,
age of 17, at the age of 17, I winded up um, going through I guess what you would call um, a, I was going through a spiritual awakening, you know, where um, I didn't want to be I'm trying to think of how to respectfully say this. Um,
Yeah, just talk.
what I have been exposed to in ministry, thank you, Holy Spirit,
Okay.
what I have been exposed to in ministry all my life through my family did not fit the construct of what I was in. Um, there were things that I embraced spiritually, uh, that I believed in, that were not a part of the normal makeup of where we were at the time in church.
Okay. Hmm.
And so I was longing for more. And so I winded up going over, and I started out just going, hanging out at a full gospel church. I won't mention the name, at a full gospel Baptist church. And I'll never forget, my father in the ministry, Dr. Ford, he found out about it and let me have it, because of course then the conversation was we all full gospel and, all this other stuff. And I'll never forget, it was a difficult thing, but I knew the Holy Spirit was leading me to join that church. And it came at such a pivotal time in my life because even though I was in this spiritual battle, I knew I did not want to be what was in my normal surrounding at that time. But then at the same time, I feared becoming what I had been exposed to spiritually. My uncles and my aunts, that mantle of deliverance, the prophetic, uh, in addition to the preaching and singing ministry. I didn't want to, I had a fear of coming into that, because of things that I had seen. And so going to this full gospel Baptist church, I'll never forget the pastor extended an opportunity for me to preach one Friday. And he stood in the microphone afterwards and he said, I know you're not here to learn how to preach. He said, I believe that God sent you here. And mind you, I'm a member now. He says, I believe God sent you here so you could stop running from what is in you. Because at that time, I was trying to make myself fit into a box of being what many would have called a traditional Baptist preacher. And that's just not what was in my DNA, you know. Um, and so being there gave me an opportunity because there were so many classes being offered on the fivefold ministry. There were classes uh, that were being offered. I saw Bible study where people actually showed up, you know,
Yeah.
and it was more than just two or three people sitting at an 8-foot table in the basement. You know, I saw where people had a passion for the word. There were classes on understanding your salvation and walking with Christ, and what it was to have faith, and you're discovering your spiritual gifts. And so all of this was new to me. And what it did was it provided me a deeper level of understanding that needed to accompany, and certain disciplines that needed to accompany the type of ministry that I was running from, but that God had placed in me. And so I came up under much ridicule. Uh, I literally was blackballed. You know, it was years before I got opportunity. And mind you, I left right. I went to Reverend and told him that I felt led to join this church, and you know uh, uh, everything. And I'll never forget it. He said, okay, because you know how Reverend was. He said, okay. He didn't try to hold me back or anything. And but at the same time, he wasn't happy. And I know it had a lot to do with, because at the time there was so much, you know, of a target put on the whole full gospel Baptist piece, you know. And here I am, I'm going joining a church right at the beginnings of it, you know. And I understood for him, it was that part of him as my spiritual father that wanted to protect me, you
Mhm.
know. And so I never was mad at Reverend. I understood, you know, and at the same time, having, you know, with him giving me the release, I had to follow through with what I was feeling the Lord leading me into. And so uh, I was blackballed. You know, it was years before I returned to my home church, to, you know, where I started preaching. It was years before I returned there with an invitation to come back home to preach. You know, uh, and how ironic, years later, a lot of who were my big brothers in the ministry at the time uh, uh, are flowing in the very areas of ministry and styles of ministry that I am not, you know. But part of their journey was staying and enduring and going through the transitions and the evolving, you know, that ultimately brought them acceptance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But as you've been saying all night, everything about your life has always been fast tracked. It's definitely tailor made for you, which is, one of those moments of realizing that you're different. Um,
Mm-hmm.
can always can be a scary moment.
Oh man.
We always ask the question, why me?
Yeah.
Um, why do I have to endure this?
Yeah.
Why do I have to? And then he'll be like, okay, are you complaining? Because
Right.
you don't see what I see. You have to
Exactly.
do this. The
Hmm.
the trailblazing um is not given to many.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not
You're
given to
right.
many. And it's not you pull straws to see. No, it's
Hmm.
already there. And
Yeah.
in that time, in those moments during life, I said, the hell I had to go through for 16 years. I had no idea that
Hmm.
it was going to bring me to these moments. But
Hmm.
now I have the moments to say to another woman, or it doesn't even have to be a woman. It's certain things that you have to know about yourself and the
Yeah.
call that God has on you that you just
Hmm.
can't settle for. You
Right.
just can't. It's
Yeah.
already going down before you even go up, because you got to be here. You
Yeah.
got to.
Yeah. I,
Um,
you know, it's funny you said that, because I remember battling. You know, I had the baptism of the Holy Spirit at a young age, and it was very different for me, because here I was in a traditional setting, and and um, nobody ever stopped me. But I had enough sense to know that it did not fit where I was. And so I say again, nobody ever stopped me, but there was that feeling of uncomfortability that I had, you know, where there were times where I knew I was constraining what was within me, you know, um, because even at a young age, I was taught I believe in order. You know, I believe in order, you know, and you know, I dared not do things that went against the order of that house, you know, and it was a challenge, you know. And so uh, what you saw as me going off the grid was actually uh, me going into to the next phase of my transformative process for ministry. And I was quiet about my exit.
Okay.
That's why you didn't know. I was quiet about my exit. When I went to talk to Reverend, I went one day during the week. We talked in the basement, and things of that nature. I left quietly. I left quietly. And watch this. My mom, my dad, and my sisters, all three of my sisters, they all were still there because my father had not left yet to go pastor the church he got called to, that ultimately my mother now pastors and you're a part of.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't know. I was a person, uh I would go, but I wouldn't ask questions, because
Mm-hmm.
if I needed to know, it would come to me. But
Yeah.
again, after a while, we all grew up. We all became
Mm-hmm.
adults. We all had our own lives. We would see each other maybe in passing. I think one time I saw you and your uncle at one of the TV stations you guys were playing or something. And I was like, oh my God, I ain't seen you in years. But
Oh
again,
yeah, I had to preach on yeah, I had to preach at it was for Glenn Plummer for his TV station. I
okay.
do remember that. And my uncle came
Yeah,
to
so it was years later, but even
Mhm.
in those moments, it's funny how although we grew up, it was still that moment like, do you remember me? Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember? Like, yeah, I remember you. Why wouldn't I
Mm.
remember you? But
Right.
it was those moments where, for me, the moments that we were separated, it was the enemy, like how he tried to pick you off by yourself. Like, nobody's here for you. Don't nobody care
Hmm.
about you. Da 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 da. And come to find out years
Hmm.
later, it's full circle with an upgrade.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Right.
I remember this, but there's like, no, it wasn't like that. Like, really? That
It was hard for me. It was hard for me, Camila, to leave because, you know, all my friends, people I spent summers with and all of that. I mean, I went out to eat with people every week, you know, every single week. And it was different. It was hard. It was different, but it was what I had to endure. It was
yeah,
part of my journey because what many people don't know is this preaching journey, this pastoral journey, uh, uh, as popular as it may appear to be, it is oftentimes more lonely
oh, you better
than
say
anything. Yeah, than
it.
anything. Um,
That
uh,
moment right there, the crazy thing is, um, and I can only be honest about life. You could be married and still lonely. And
oh,
people don't believe
absolutely.
that, but you can be
Yeah.
married but still lonely. And
Hmm.
it definitely when you're not on the same page, like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
what's going on, or what's God's talking to me and showing me about, you have no clue, no idea. So we don't have
Hmm.
nothing in common to talk about. And
Right.
where we
Yeah.
were when we
Yeah.
first began, we're not there no more. And that's where they come
Hmm.
into that moment where the relationship becomes, are we roommates?
Yeah. Yeah. Those things do happen and they do exist. Um, um, I was just talking to a friend of mine on last night, and I was sharing with him. A lot of people don't realize that one of the loneliest um, time times in a pastor's life is when he or she has to lay down in the bed at night and come to grips with who they really are, and come to grips with where they have to ask themselves the question, how much of what I'm doing is really God's will for my life and ministry versus me trying to fit into what many people call the normal of today's church is. You know, um, that can be a very lonely time. Um, and that's why it's important that you have a strong relationship with God. That is why it is important that um, uh, much prayer has to go into um, a mate. You know who you're spending your the rest of your life with, because um, um, that person has to be able to handle, the different facets of who you are when ministry is attached to your life. Um, and then one of the things I've had to learn, you know, is, how to have balance because everything, all my conversation with my wife can't be about church and church people and church problems and,
That
all
that
that
ain't
kind
no
of
turn
stuff.
on.
Right. And a date ain't taking my wife to church and we going out to eat afterwards. That ain't no date, you know. So, you know, I've had to learn over the years uh, of, um, you gotta work at being a husband.
Mm.
You gotta work at being a father. You know, because one of the things and I went through a period of this where I was a private. I mean, I was a public success in the eyes of people, but I was a private failure. I was failing as a father. I was failing as a husband. You know, um, you know, and I could say it like that. It's one thing to have a failing moment. you know, it's another thing to just flat out just be failing at it. And I went through periods in both of those areas of my life where I was failing and failing tremendously. Now, my wife, she was in here, she'll tell you, yeah, he has some failing moments, but I don't believe I'm failing at it anymore. And that is because again, the older I got, um, um, and the more I begin to understand, that God is a God of balance. Family is important to God, and things of that nature. I had to make some changes, so I try to be to Benita, uh, uh, daily the best husband I can be, and I miss it sometimes. I miss it sometimes. Sometimes I'm not the easiest person in the world, to deal with, but uh, I keep working at it. I don't quit. I don't give up. Because you really have to. When you got a good person in your life, you have to come to a place where you have a commitment and a resolve, come what may. This is my wife for life. This is my husband for life. So many people not go into marriage uh, with a contingency plan of a failing. You can't go into a marriage like that
Yeah.
because it's like going in with one foot in and one foot out.
Right.
You never really fully give yourself to it. And so those were some of the changes I had to make and I had to go through. You know, uh, for me at one time it was always ministry first.
Wow.
You know,
I can see that.
yeah, it was always ministry first. And I gave everybody around me that was in my circle hell because I lived by that. And like I said, it brought me public success in some areas, but privately, man, I was failing. I
So
was
let me
failing.
ask this. Like in
Okay.
the do you take your wife on like R&B concert dates?
Uh, uh, we differ when it comes to our music. Okay, we differ when it comes to our music. So, uh, uh, for example, I like going to R&B concerts. Okay, but some of the people my wife like to go hear when she asks me sometime, "Hey, you want to go hear this person?" And I'll be like,
Uh-huh.
"I want to go with one of your girls," you know.
Okay.
Uh, but we do. There are other things we do,
Okay.
so like travel. You know,
Y'all
we're
just went on a
really
trip, right?
yeah. We just got back. We just got back from what I call our second home, Vegas.
Okay.
you know, we love Vegas. There's so much more to do. People, when you say Vegas, they just think about the casinos and gambling.
Right. It's so much other stuff,
It's so
beautiful
much more to
things.
do in
The
Vegas.
the helicopter rides and
Yeah,
having dinner in the caves and all types of stuff. Yeah, I get it.
so much more to do. And so we just got back from Vegas. We're going on a cruise in a couple months. It'll be her fourth or fifth cruise. It'll only be my first one. Uh,
Okay.
but again, that's an example of something she wanted us to do.
Yeah.
You know, she wanted us to do a cruise. So I finally buckled down, mustered up the courage, and did it. Or I'm doing it rather.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
That's
we
good.
travel.
The balanced life is very important, especially in ministry. It's recommended that you go as often as you can because you
Yeah.
have so much that you're carrying. Um,
Hmm.
those moments of understanding rest, turn the phone off.
Yeah.
Those moments where no, you cannot go. We
Hmm.
have this,
Yeah.
and there's the importance of the village. The
Right.
village, I learned that the church was part of the village.
Hmm.
It was a part of our growing up in the do's and don'ts, and you had several grandmas because hey, they were the ushers, they were your friend's grandma, and they became your grandma.
Right.
There were people who cared
Yeah.
about you and
Hmm.
your concern. I will never forget growing up with one of the best deacons next to my daddy was Isaiah Ford. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah. Yeah.
he took on the challenge of basically raising all of us into the
Yeah.
adults
He
we
was
are
my
today.
basketball coach at Wayside.
Exactly. The
I remember
basketball
one
team,
time. I
introducing
remember one
that.
time. I remember one time. He threw me in the game, and I got out there, and they threw the ball to me, and I went in the wrong direction and shot the ball on the opposite end. He called me over to the bench and popped me upside my head.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
definitely the ideal, dad to
Yeah.
bring in those who fathers, mothers couldn't be, or whatever the case may be. He
True.
took it on,
Yeah.
took us to, the YMCA's and
Hmm.
different trips out to
Yeah.
Atlanta, all of these different
Yeah.
things that he wanted to make sure that we had fun in church
Right.
and really had a reason, not just to be coming, but to be
Yeah.
involved, which
Yeah.
was really, really good.
I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember that summer program Reverend Hill, when he was the youth pastor, had instituted the Love Outreach program? Yeah, that was a phenomenal program. I mean, wow. It was, then there was so much being offered.
Yes.
And I remember, that was around time of the DN4 Corral and everything. And I'll never forget uh, when those things stopped being offered. When they stopped being offered, we started losing a lot of young people.
Yeah.
A lot of them, we start seeing, shot and killed.
Shot and killed. Yeah.
It was a very devastating time.
First of all, we wasn't in the best of neighborhoods, but
Oh no,
at one
our
point,
church was in the hood.
yes, but at one point, we did have the gangster guys coming to church. We
Yeah,
did
we did.
have
We had the drug dealers
teams.
coming. Yeah.
Yeah, they were coming to play
Mhm.
basketball. Our
Yeah.
teams were winning.
Yeah, we were the champions.
Plenty of
Yeah.
trophies and different things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And it was making a difference.
Yeah.
With Reverend Hill, one of the things, and we were just talking about this at this funeral, was he was one that he will come to the school. Not only if you was messing up, but he will come and congratulate you too. He really, really was concerned about the whole you. And as a youth director at one point, the kids were more afraid of me than their own parents.
Yeah.
I got that from my mama. But again, it's the moment of, if I say I care, I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you, and then I'm going to love on you.
Right.
And some of us didn't have that type of love. Some of us didn't have the 2-parent household or different. Like, we were blessed to have that. And so
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just thought about something. I don't know if you remember this or not, but when I was in high school at Osborne, and I was Mr. Preacher, I was cutting up, and in one semester I skipped my Spanish class 52 times in one semester, and my mother, of course, she lit into me. Oh, she lit into me. But I'll never forget she told Reverend Ford. And Reverend had suits, and then Reverend had suits. Okay. And it was the 90s, and Reverend would come over to the church sometime with a powder blue bell bottom, wide leg suit on. 3-piece. Camila, my mama told Reverend that I had skipped that Spanish class like that. And I'll never forget, I was on my way out the door to go across the street to Dee's to get some pizza. You remember Dee's? And Reverend was coming in the door as I was going out and said, "Oh boy, where you going? School ain't out." And walked me back in. This is high school. Walked me back in and went to all my classes with me the rest of that day and asked me, what did Reverend have on?
A suit.
He had on a green 3-piece bell-bottom suit with a white shirt, wide tie, and had on some brown shoes, and had his
gotta hat on the hat.
Had to have that hat. And I remember walking through the hallways, going to the different classes at Osborne, and the kids was teasing me, saying the preacher's pastor that had to come to the school.
Had to come up to the school.
But that was the hands-on village we had.
Yep. I had a Reverend Hill popped up at my elementary school a couple of times, and it was, keep it up, you're gonna get whooped. So it was to know the lineage that you come from, and half the people that our church folks were, they all been at the same church for years. So they knew you. They knew your father. They knew, you know what I'm saying? So no, you better straighten up and fly right. Speaking of, a change has come, and the sanctity of you and your wife, of life, right? And we know life happens, and we put on this extra sexy weight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get the extra love handles and all of that stuff. And so, what was your highest that you were as far as your weight?
My highest weight was 405 pounds.
Over a period of how many years?
I fluctuated. My average weight would be anywhere between 350 and 390.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember, and I don't know if this is your case, and this was something I wanted to ask. There was a point where my highest was 315, 320.
Okay.
And that's when I was very, very, when I say very, very, very depressed. And I was
Mm-hmm.
eating any and everything at any and
Mm-hmm.
every time I wanted to. My
Mm-hmm.
specialty at night, in the middle of the night, and I didn't know this was a thing of binge eating or depressed eating.
Yeah.
It was boxes of Fruit Loops, dry Fruit Loops, not with the milk.
Wow.
Boxes of Fruit Loops and
Mm-hmm.
Twinkies.
And Twinkies in the same set.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
so
that's
I'm
diabetes,
putting
baby.
it on, but still in my head saying I'm still cute,
Mm-hmm.
not realizing that I'm killing myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this is where, onset diabetes, um, all different types of things that you're not really realizing that these are things that are you are doing to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's putting a gun to your head to say, hey, eat this. This is
Mm-hmm.
something that you are doing.
Yeah.
Yes, there are effects of things that were going on in the life. But
Mm-hmm.
again, these were my choices of eating myself crazy, literally.
Yeah.
Um, on these years of putting on these love handles,
Mm-hmm.
were you depressed?
Yeah. Yeah. I battled um um I battled for years with depression and
Okay.
didn't know it
Okay.
because um, I have my mother's spiritual DNA and I have my mother's work ethic. Okay, I inherited that from my mom, and um, um, I one of the ways that I would cope with stress was I would dive more into my work, which for me, was ministry. The more stressful I was, the harder I went into paint in my
Okay.
preaching, in my administration, and so many things. Um, and so uh, uh, I'm not going to talk about a lot. I am going to hit on some things because I'm working on this new book
The
where I
book.
where I
Uh-huh.
address these things. But yes, I did, and um, I did not know it. I did not know it because a lot of things I had suppressed from my memory. Okay. But uh, it began to eventually manifest itself uh, uh, in different ways. One of the ways, yes, my weight. Uh, my weight uh, got out of control. Um, I spent a lot of time preaching on the road. I spent a couple years preaching on the road. Sometimes I would be gone as many as you know 12 days out the month. Okay, and so you're talking about a lot of late night eating. You know, after church, uh, or going back to the hotel eating. You know, the majority of the food that I was consuming was from restaurants. Not all of them were the best choice restaurants. Um, not exercising, and it just progressively got worse. Uh, I discovered I had an eating problem where I was using food to cope uh, with my anger and my depression. Uh, One day I'll never forget uh, person who I was married to at the time. We just had one of those mornings, and that led into uh, arguing on the phone, and all this other stuff. And I'll never forget, I was so mad. I left out of my office at the church and I went to Burger King and I got a double whopper which with heavy cheese meal cut in half, large fry, large pop, large Coke, and I also ordered a original chicken sandwich. I took all of this back to the church, sat in my office, and I ate until I got sick. And I remember asking myself, like, what is wrong with you? And so that was the first time I recognized it, but I didn't change it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found myself uh, where whenever I felt a certain way, I would eat. Food in a lot of ways became my comfort. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't make it no better that I love to cook. That's one of the ways I relax and unwind and I clear my mind. I cook. And and I can cook anything from soul food to what people will call gourmet. I mean, I love to cook. And um, so I just developed all of these bad habits, Camille. I would sit down at night in the bed, and would eat me a pint of Haagen Dazs, the whole pint, one set, just sit there and eat it, and then would tell myself it was okay because I would drink a liter of water behind it,
Okay.
and so uh, then during the pandemic, uh, so I wound up finding out, a few years before the pandemic that I dealt with depression. I wound up going to counseling and, found out that this was something that I was diagnosed with. I was dealing with it and, was prescribed medication and all that other kind of stuff. And I didn't tell nobody that I dealt with it. Matter of fact, my wife Benita didn't know that I dealt with it. A lot of people watching probably didn't know, so there it is. But Benita didn't even know until during the pandemic, and where my normal was so disrupted, because we couldn't go out.
Right.
So how I was used to dumping myself off into my work and into ministry, I couldn't do it. I had no outlet. I'm stuck in the house, and uh, that things start creeping back up, and I had to open up, talk to my wife about it, and but I still didn't take the steps I knew to take rather. I didn't go back to therapy. Watch this. I was hosting live streams, okay, where in one of them I had my therapist come on and talk about. I did an interview with her, talk about, how to cope with the pandemic, how to you navigate through it and hold on to yourself. And the whole time inwardly I was imploding.
Wow.
Whole time inwardly I was imploding. And was falling back into bad habits and things that I had kept suppressed for years, and I'm walking in deliverance now it's festering back up, and I'm falling into certain behaviors that are self-destructive and all this other kind of stuff, and man, compiled with the eating and everything, and the weight just picked up. It just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I remember my wife telling me, she was like, I love you, but you done got too big. She
Mm.
was like, you still cute, but you my bear, but you a big bear now. you know. And because I had probably we got married, I think, a month before the pandemic, before the shutdown.
Okay.
Okay. So, I picked up 75, almost 100 pounds during that time, and stuff. So at the end of the day, I developed bad habits, not exercising. My health, I got diagnosed with being diabetic, and then I had other issues going on, uh, that, for a long time I didn't even tell my wife about until one day it scared the heck out of me. And even then she tried to make me go to the doctor, and me being a man, I was like, no, I ain't going. They ain't finna get ready to mess with me there and all that other stuff. And when fast forward, we get to Jordan, and one Sunday after preaching, I had already had a few days of not feeling well, where it was like my heart rhythm was just off and all this other stuff. And one evening we get in after going to eat after church, and I tell my wife, she hadn't even got her clothes off. I hadn't even took mine off. I went straight in and sat in the theater room, and I said, honey, I think I need to go to the hospital. That's not something I say. So she immediately was like, okay, come on, let's go. She, no questions, no nothing. And we get there. I'm telling them what's wrong. I'm thinking it's heart related. And my wife, being who she is, she let me tell them that, but then she told them everything
Uh-huh.
I have been dealing with.
Yeah.
And they ran tests and everything. And I had some major issues going on. And the next morning, the doctor came in and he said to me, this is what he said. He was a young doctor. He said, Mr. Preacher, he said, Mr. Preacher, he said, at the rate you're going, he said, you'll probably be dead by 55.
Mm.
Yeah. And it was a wake up call. I was killing myself. And it was at that moment that I made up my mind. Uh, I had to make some changes. And so um, I had uh, two hernias in my abdomen and a mass. And these items needed to be removed. And this is my first time publicly saying this. So this is, it's my first time.
Exclusive.
And so this is an exclusive. Um, and so I never forget, I had to meet with the, what you call it, the gastroenterologist.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I had to meet with him, and he came in to talk to me. And he said, you got some serious things going on, but we're going to deal with it and you'll be all right. And he looked at me and he said, I've noticed in your chart, you've gone up and down in your weight. It's going up and down, going up and down, going up and down, going up and down. And he said, have you ever considered weight loss surgery? And I said, yeah. I said, when I was going to have it, I said, I did everything I was supposed to do. And they called me the night before and told me they had to reschedule it. And after that, I didn't want to do it no more. Because I tricked myself into thinking, watch this, that because I had came down off of some of the weight then, I could keep doing it.
Yeah.
But again, my weight issues were also tied to things I was dealing with psychologically.
Mentally. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Along with bad habits, along with no exercise, along with my lifestyle.
Yes.
So he said to me, he said, you're a man of faith. He said, I want you to pray about it. He said, I'm going to be right there. He said, I'm going to be right there, removing these hernias and this mass. He said, you need to just pray about letting me go on ahead and sleep in you. And when my wife got to the hospital that day, I talked to her about it. And she said, you need to do it. She said, you need to do it. She said, because, this emotional, I get, choked up talking
So
about.
You got the sleeve?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
She told me, she said, I want you to live.
Absolutely.
And so now, mind you, up until that moment, what started my journey had actually began that January. Because that January, I went on on the 31-day fast with my church, the Daniel fast. And so I came down some then. I liked how I felt and everything. And for a minute, it did suppress some of the internal issues that I was
Uh-huh.
having. But
Yeah.
then I would still go through battles where I would fall off the bandwagon
Yeah.
and then get back on, and everything. And so, yeah, I made the choice after much prayer, after talking to my wife. I made the choice. I got sleeved. When they went in to remove those hernias and that mass, I let them sleeve me. And it was the best choice and best decision that I could have made. I went from 405 pounds. I'm around
Excuse me.
260, 266, somewhere in there now. And I feel great. I feel much better. The first time me and my wife went to Vegas more than a year ago, I hung out in the room the majority of the time because I couldn't walk. I couldn't do all that walking. This time when we went to Vegas, my wife was like, "Can we please go back to the condo?" you know, because I was walking with her on average of 10, 12 miles a day. We just walking, and I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it, and everything. And so it's given me a whole new lease on life. A lot of people think that I've heard people say, well, that's taking the easy way out. No, it ain't. Because first of all, the discipline that you have to do it, the discipline to adapt to the changes and all of that other stuff. There were things I had to do before my surgery. And then, afterwards, learning how to eat all over again, and
Basically.
learning this new way of living,
Yes.
and my doctor telling me I have to walk a minimum of 2 miles a day.
Just a quick question. I mean, I know we here though.
Mm-hmm.
Are y'all fixed?
Oh,
You mess around and had baby number 10.
No, no more. No more children are coming. Are coming from
Okay, now,
this
yeah,
household.
you a
Now,
new
in
way
that,
of life.
yeah, uh, in that number 9 are bonus children. Okay, that I winded up, raising. I was in their lives at a young age, and uh, and raise them. I mean, I don't do the whole step thing.
Right, I get it.
You know,
I'm
and
just saying in your new way of life and things you walking around and woo, baby,
no,
you
no,
just slipped up and here we
no,
are.
that chapter for us is closed. That chapter for us is
Mess
closed.
around. I be like, oh
Yeah,
child.
I'm
That's what
48 years
happens.
old, and my baby girl is Ashley, and Ashley is 11, and that's it. That's it. There will be no
I'm
more.
just saying. Whew.
Yeah, there will be no more.
Listen
But
here.
you
Let me
know,
get down to 175. It's a wrap. What? Camila.
yeah,
Huh? What you
no,
saying?
no,
Oh,
we're done.
okay.
Watch this. We take joy in playing with the children at the church. You know,
Absolutely.
uh, uh,
We got
uh,
a new baby at the church right now.
yeah.
And soon as I'm done with ministry, as far as what I have to do, come
Hmm.
on, give me the
Yeah,
baby.
yeah.
And well,
My
God
wife
knows my
is
heart.
so
Like
good.
I want children, but it hasn't happened yet. And I did
Okay,
say yet.
there you go. There you go.
So yeah,
My
I
wife
was
did
like,
so good sitting there holding them babies, on the Sunday, and I'm gonna tell you, what the biggest blessing is? Because when I get done changing and I'm ready to go,
they
she can
go
get
home with
right
their
back in the
parents. Yep.
bed and we can get in our car and go eat. I ain't gotta carry no car seat because Lauren and Ashley can get in the car themselves.
Amen to that. I'm super I'm definitely proud of you.
Thank
Most of the
you.
time people don't understand with on social media we see you and we might not say anything. I might not comment, I might like, I might share it.
Hmm.
But I am definitely proud of you from the time that I've known you till now.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember. I think I heard you preach once, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
as an adult. Now, I believe I was there for your
You were.
trial sermon for
Hmm.
sure. But as an adult, I think at your church, I believe it was. So for me, it's an excitement as the big brother coming in and look what the Lord has done.
Right.
Even through the tests and trials and us making mistakes in life and thinking that what we chose is going to be forever.
Right.
Um, we still have to live with that. We still have to, and you mentioned the important that God loves family regardless.
Hmm.
And again, I don't care um, what we have done,
Hmm.
God still loves us just the same.
Absolutely.
Um, again, I wanted to people to understand that even though we've been called as, whatever we're going to become, because we're still becoming, um, we going to make some mistakes.
Hmm.
We might hurt some people in the meantime.
Yeah.
We might be hurting ourselves. Ain't no might. I did.
Hmm.
There was moments where depression was so hard on me. I was suicidal.
Hmm.
Um, I was eating myself crazy. I was neglecting my health.
Hmm.
I was isolating myself,
Yeah.
where it was periods of time nobody saw me.
Hmm.
Um, this still in the church. We're still
Hmm.
going to church every week
Yeah.
and
Out and praising the Lord.
praising the Lord, and nobody
Yeah.
knows, nobody
Hmm.
sees it.
Yeah.
And these are the moments that I cherish of the turnaround,
Hmm.
because trouble again don't last always.
Truly.
And the faith part is that um, I can see somebody that I could touch and say,
Hmm.
I remember when.
Yeah.
And now a change has come.
Hmm.
Look what the Lord has done.
God be the glory.
Even in, I'm trying not to be emotional,
Hmm.
just from where we come from. And now the Lord is being or having you in a moment of successful publicly as well as privately. I watch you, um, and it's a beautiful thing. A
God be
beautiful
the glory.
thing. Um, and even in at the Jordan, those moments of uplifting and empowerment, we didn't know. We never know sometimes the story that God has for us to help
Hmm.
others, right?
Right.
Did I know that Sunshine was going to have to go through the things that she did just to get here and where
Hmm.
I'm going? No, because I would have been like, I'm going to do the Baptist finger and I'm exiting
Take an
left.
exit. Right.
I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. Sorry.
Hmm.
But again, these moments that I cherish because I do know you. Um, and also the alma mater of Osborne. Yes, I must say that. And I want these two words right here in the next one in a minute to explain or what this personally means to you of uplifting and empowerment.
Uplift and empowerment. Um, for me, my my ministry is all about providing the care and attendance necessary to see people restored uh, to wholeness in their rightful place uh, with God. So my ministry, the ministry that God has given me, has anointed me to do, is all about empowering the people to live their best life in Christ. Uh, I am not one that believe in beating people up because all of us got stuff we're overcoming, you know. And for a long time, we have painted the picture of the church being exclusive when it when God wants it to be inclusive. And so that's what that uplift and empower means to me. You know, um, I used to hear an old song sang in the church. If I can help somebody along life's way, then my living shall not be in vain. I love helping people. I love empowering people, and I just thank God that He has saw fit to use me to do so, even during seasons where He chose to use me in spite of me.
You better say it. Huh. So with this new book, are you gonna give like some recipes that helped you, um, or am I? Should I give Reddit writers credit for my opinion in these books? I'm trying to. How does that? How does that go?
Well, what I can share with you is that it's not a cookbook. However, let me tell you one of my biggest dreams. One of my biggest dreams. A lot of people may not know this, but one of the things that I want to do before the Lord raptures me or calls me home is, even while I'm pastoring and doing everything I do, I have a dream of one day opening a restaurant.
Wow. Okay.
So things like, could I see myself doing a cookbook? I could see myself doing that. Yeah, I could see myself doing that. I try to share with people, and that's all a part of the uplift and
Yeah.
empowering. I try to share with people things that I do, that I've done, or that I'm currently doing, that's helping me on my journey. Because again, the sleep was only part of it.
Right. It's
Yeah,
the day after. It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
and recently with health for me is I have officially had to let go of beef and pork.
Mm,
I had
okay,
no choice because I was tired of being in pain.
okay.
And this was happening to me, I want to say the last month, where I really
Hmm.
noticed that within hours of me eating beef or pork, my
Hmm.
body would be inflamed.
Yeah,
Um, and I was not getting my proper sleep because I was in pain.
right.
And I couldn't go to sleep until it was subside, which could be for hours. And I was like, I can't, I got too much work to do to be worried about my feet, my knees, is my legs gonna work? What
you
we
know,
not
it,
good?
it's crazy. I want to share this tip with you, and I believe it also bless some other people that's watching. One of the things that I did, uh, I found out my blood type, and
Yeah,
then
okay.
there's a book. I forget the name of it. There's a book that you could purchase, and then of course we live in a world of kids
Google. And
nowadays.
I know about this
Yeah,
book, and the crazy
yeah,
thing is you just don't do it. Like
yeah.
there's your superfoods that's directly towards your blood type.
Your blood type, eating according to your blood type
Yep. Hmm.
is important. And so again, there are things that I still eat that are outside of that, but the majority of what I consume now uh is compatible with my blood type. Um, and so I just want to share that with you, uh, because, and I'm just giving this as an example. When you've practiced poor eating habits, you could be eating things that's right for your blood type, but because it's going into something that, you know, has been abused, so to speak, for so long, you almost have to go through a phase of reprogramming. Well, not almost.
Reprogramming.
You have to reprogram your mind and your body, and then
Absolutely.
make the adjustment to having the things you're supposed to have. And so I want to encourage you, Camila, to don't just see the book or know how to access that information via Google, but look into it, do it, and continue to stay on the path towards a better you. Because what I've discovered is a healthy me is a better me.
Absolutely. I still have to bring forth children, so therefore, I got to make sure my vessel is um, good to be able to go for a term,
Yeah.
all that wonderful things, and then just for, as we say, oops, she down to 175. Look at her, and oops, she pregnant. There we go. So those moments right there is again to share the tips to, maybe I'll get a writer's credit for suggesting that he puts some of his tips in the book. Y'all heard it here first. Okay, thank you. Um, so yeah, that part. And again, much success to life for you. Um, again, you have no idea how important you are to the body of Christ until somebody tells you. I'm not gonna wait till you in the grave to say it. I watched you for years, and to be able to sit down on a busy Tuesday night to have a conversation about your life, um, it was very important to me to reach out and have this conversation. Um, Outside of the restaurant, what is something else people will be surprised to know about you?
um,
You know you're
okay.
not getting out of here without singing a song, right? Yep, that part right there. Uh-huh.
So uh, there are things that uh, I've always wanted to do, and now that you know, I've been on this journey to a healthier me. Uh, I was sharing with my wife when we was in Vegas. I told her uh, that real soon I wanted to. It's a few things on my bucket list, and
Okay.
I know some of this is getting ready to shock some people. Okay,
Okay.
and I know if my mom is watching, I'm probably gonna get a uh, a phone call from her about some of this stuff. But
Uh-huh.
one of the things here are some of the things on my bucket list.
Okay.
Okay? Outside of the fact I love to play golf, I like to fish,
Okay.
things of that nature. Um, uh, but here's a few things on my bucket list. I want to go parasailing.
Okay.
I want to go. What is it called? Skydiving. I want to jump out of a plane. I want to
Mm.
jump out of a plane. I really do. I want to jump out of a plane. So I want to skydive. I want to go parasailing. Where's that big old kite thing
Yep.
and you
Mm-hmm.
throwing
Off a
it down.
boat. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I want to do that. I want to zip line.
Okay.
I want to zip line. And so those are some of the things that's on my bucket list in terms of travel. Um, uh, of course, I want to do Dubai. I want to do Africa. I want to do Um, I want to do Rome and Italy. I, want to go to France, and
Mm-hmm.
I love history.
Okay.
I love history. I'm passionate about history. I love history, and so uh, uh, I'm the guy. Sometimes my wife walks in, and sometimes she'll come in and In her mind, okay, I'm finna go in this house, spend some time with my boo. He home from the office. I'm gonna go in here and spend some time with my boo.
You
And
watch the History Channel.
she'll come in and I'll be watching a documentary, or I'll be watching. What I really love? I love watching the stuff about the animals and the lions and how they survive, and them eating and killing their prey, and I'm into all of that stuff. And so one day I even want to go on a safari.
Safari, okay.
Yeah. This is something else people don't know about me. Ask me what my favorite movie in the whole world is.
Jurassic Park?
No. I like Jurassic Park, but that's not my favorite movie.
Let's see.
You're not going to believe it when I tell you. So you may as well just let me go and tell you.
Okay, what is it?
Free Willy.
What? Free Willy? I would have never guessed that.
Free Willy.
I'm out here thinking of Jaws or something.
Again, you're talking to a guy that I love different types of movies. Okay. But literally, my favorite movie, I drive my family crazy with this, because at least once or twice a year, I make everybody sit down and watch Free Willy with me. I love movies. First of all, I love orcals. Okay. That's what Willy was. Okay.
Yeah.
Orcal whale. I love movies like that. I love movies like Dolphin Tale.
Yeah. So basically, animal movies that was based off of true stories.
Yeah, I love Secretariat. I love horses,
and I
get that from my grandmother, because my great grandfather had a farm, raised horses and everything. My grandmother is from Lexington, Kentucky. Mother Brry is from Lexington, Kentucky, and so I used to sit down with her sometime in the kitchen when she wasn't watching Benny Hinn. And once a year, when it was the Kentucky Derby, I would sit down and watch it with my grandmother. So I love horses.
Wow.
One day I even want to own a horse.
That's what's up.
Yeah. I would have so never those are some of the things that I'm into and I like.
Oh, so tip, wherever you're going on your cruise, look into the excursions, because most of the time they do have zip lining.
Okay.
And some of them do have parasailing. So check into that.
Now, here's the question. The question. How many people want Lady Brry to zip line or parasail with me?
You gotta go together.
Well, I don't know.
I went to where was we at? Ocho Rios, Jamaica. And me and my husband jumped off a 15-foot cliff into the water.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was one of the part of the excursions.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to have on one. But the point was we
taking
did it together.
And doing
just
it
free fall. Jump.
Yeah. Hey honey, will you jump off a 15-foot cliff into the water with me?
Probably like, what?
She said no.
I would see the parasailing, at least you strapped in, you up there, you're not I listen, there's another place.
My wife will be, I'm telling y'all now, Lady Brry is gonna be videoing me from the ground.
In Tennessee, there's a place where the whole thing is in the mountaintops and you're walking around in the trees. And yes. I have to look it up because we were gonna go when we went to Tennessee.
Gatlinburg?
I believe it's in Gatlinburg.
Okay.
But it's in everything is in the trees. Like you're up there walking around in the trees. But we had went into the House of Museum or something where it's upside down. And they have
now see that right there I wouldn't do.
But no. It's like the Science Center times 100. It's actually fun. So we going in there, and they have, it's not zip lining, but you have to walk up these planks all the way up to the ceiling, right? from that point on, I knew I couldn't do zip lining.
Really?
Yes.
Heights?
Yes. And it was like, you got your straps, you got the little harness, and I was like, nope, I'd rather do a roller coaster than that.
Now,
So
see, watch this. Have I roller coaster a few times? Absolutely. But is it something I like to do or will do? No. Now, my wife,
roller coasters?
listen, she will ride roller coasters.
But she
She will
can't.
ride roller coasters.
But what? If
She
you
ain't
can,
gonna,
if
she
you
not
can
gonna,
ride a roller coaster, you can do parasailing.
she ain't gonna do that.
Okay, so how about this? What about the place up in Upper Michigan where they do the skydiving and the tube? Did you try that one yet?
No, I haven't tried that one yet.
Is it skydive? What is sky jumper?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. You go and you lay out and then they turn the thing on and they lift you up and yeah.
Try that one first.
I mean, I may be able to talk her into that.
Yeah, try that one because it's supposed to be.
That's one of the unique beauties about marriage. Stuff that I want to do, she ain't necessarily into, but I may be able to get her to try it, and vice versa. And so now that I am able to do things,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to exploring these new things, and some of them I know I may have to do it by myself.
Just don't let them get pregnant. We'll be able to do together. They exploring stuff, and Lord help them.
So yeah.
But see, these things on a lower level will give you the opportunity to see if you can actually do it on the big level. Like the little sky thing in there, if you can handle that, you feel like you can actually skydive for real. If you can do some of these other little, ventures, then maybe you can actually zip line. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I have held you for almost 2 hours. Oh my God.
Yeah, you broke a record for having me on for an interview. Because normally
God. But it happens when you're having fun and you just,
And I have enjoyed myself. You've been a wonderful.
You lose track of time. So before we do all of that, I told you all these together.
Huh?
Is something wrong with your throat? What's wrong?
Oh no, I was just clearing it because I've been talking a lot.
Oh, you want to get you some water so you can get this.
I got water. I got water. But I'm not a singer like that.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a singer like that. People think I am, but I'm not. You don't hear me running around talking about I can sing. No.
You got a small hymn. Go ahead.
A small hymn?
Yeah, a line of a hymn or something.
I can't believe you put me on the spot like this.
You should know this by now.
Let me see.
I know.
What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pains we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. All right, that's it. That's enough. God bless you.
God bless you. God bless you. Well, glad you.
God bless you. And the name of that place is Treehouse Mountain in Cooper Hill, Tennessee,
which is close to Gatlinburg, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Thank you, Risa, for that information.
And it wasn't that expensive either, actually. Okay. So everything is outside. So the only reason why we didn't go because it rained that day.
Okay.
And you can't get your money back. So, yeah, praise the Lord. So I don't have to sing. Let's see here. So I do have some church announcements. before I let y'all go? So I had the opportunity to write my first single book. I'm working on book number 2. So this year, book number 2 will be out, which will be Prayer Changes Things. This book, The Blueprint Guides Design, is right now on Amazon. You can put the title, this code, or my name, and it will come up. Please support. If you want to continue to see the successful level of this platform get to TV land, you can donate at the Cash App at Sunshine Kamillah, Kamillah. That's how you spell it for real. I'm so proud of Pastor Brry for pronouncing my name correctly the whole night.
That's right, Kamillah.
Hallelujah. It is a blessing to hear people say your name correctly. How about that? This conversation has been brought to you by Blacktop Streetball Association, btsba.com. If you remember if you remember Main Event, that is my big brother. That's my heart. They're coming back out this year as owners this time around. So look out to see what city they will be visiting to get their teams together. If you know someone who would love to be on the show, please Facebook message me at Sunshine Kamela. That's for all those who don't say my name, Kamillah, right? Okay, great. You can go to IG, Sunshine Kamillah, or Keeping It Real Conversations, or email me. I appreciate this wonderful man of God for coming through tonight, Pastor Michael Brry, Senior. Do you have any last words, sir?
Thank you so much for your hospitality. Thank you for sharing your platform with us and allowing me to come on and just share a little bit of my journey. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And I hope that this is not our last time.
Of course not. Soon as the book come out, if you want to do an exclusive, like you told some of your exclusive stories tonight, I am definitely willing to do that. Again, this is a platform for the village. I don't charge people to tell their stories. This is our testimony time of, again, look what the Lord has done. We can't do this without each other. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the name of the show. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share this broadcast. Again, blessings to you in your home, in your journey of love overflowing for not only yourself, but for your family, your extended family as well. At the Jordan. It's so much that's still in you that you haven't even discovered yet. And I'm so excited for you to find out all the treasures that he has stored in you. Again, I believe in 6 degrees of separation. You're literally one person away, one advice away, and one help away from where you need to be in your destiny, proven over and over again since 2020. When this first started. Again, you guys, I will see you back on this Friday with the young man who is teaching hustles, and he's fully autistic. And wow. Yes, he is so excited to come. I got a call from my auntie who used to be his teacher, and he's willing to come on and have a conversation with us. So again, I will see you back on this Friday at 7 p.m. with Michael Durant. So again, good night, everyone.
Good night. Peace.